comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile.
Up in the sky!
Faster than a speeding bullet.
Holy, here we go again,
Hello, and welcome to These Guys Have Issues, the podcast where we discuss current topics and issues within the comic book and geek community. I'm your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I'm your guest host, Nat Yance.
And Nat, we're gonna have to start calling you a guest host here if you're gonna be 2 weeks in a row, man. Like just co-host. I don't know.
Co-host, I like that.
Right,
Substitute host.
There we go. We rotate. You know, Huey and I have had a pinch. I like that. Huey and I have had a hard time aligning our schedules here, and we're both just working a bunch. But man, I've been glad again through the miracle of the internet that we've been able to connect some here.
Absolutely.
So we were originally planning on doing another Batman episode tonight for Classic Cartoon Rewind. But about midday, some pretty seismic news broke that the Spider-Man deal between Sony and Marvel had fallen apart. So, you know, I messaged you and was basically like, we gotta talk about this, right? Like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw the article. I saw you post the article on Facebook, and then as I was reading the headline, I got your message.
Right, and another, co-host of the podcast as well, Michael Thomas, was kind of prying me for like opinions on that, and I was just like, I don't know, man, like check out the podcast because that's where I'm just gonna download all this to. Pretty much, I'm just gonna get out everything I need to say about Spider-Man into this podcast here. So now, before we get into like the nitty gritty of it, you've really only seen like the headline, right, and haven't been able to like dive into it fully.
Yeah. So the way I was going to frame this is that I've inadvertently done you a favor. Okay. I am now your tabula rasa.
Excellent.
To bounce these ideas off of, because I have only seen the skin deep aspects of the story.
Wonderful. That may be the one and only time that phrase is used on this podcast. That is too highbrow for us, sir.
Well, I certainly hope so. I hope it doesn't come back.
Right. Yeah, okay. So really, we're just going to kind of break this down and give some opinions on what happened and then where we could or would like to see things go. So like always, though, before we get into the main meat of the podcast, here's a quick message from our Patreon. All of Grassroots Comics is funded through our Patreon, patreon.com/grassrootscomics. For as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Grassroots Comics community, which includes many perks, such as having your name mentioned in this segment of every episode of the podcast, the ability to suggest topics of discussion for shows like These Guys Have Issues, access to the private Grassroots Comics subreddit where members can continue discussions started on the podcast or start their own, behind-the-scenes access to the GRC studio, and early access to digitally released comics and Classic Cartoon Rewind. So it is the goal of all of us here at Grassroots Comics Productions that one day the Patreon is strong enough where we are able to produce the stories, artwork, and stop-motion animation shorts pitched and selected by the Grassroots Comics community. But the only way that becomes possible is with a strong Patreon. So if you feel that the entertainment value you receive from this podcast is at least worth 25 cents, then please become a Patreon contributor today, and with our powers combined, we can have all of our stories heard. All right, now let's get on with the rest of the show. All right, and we're back, and we do want to thank our patrons, Devin Hood and Adam Finney. Appreciate it. Okay, so the previous Marvel deal with Sony, were you aware at all of any of the stipulations, I guess, that deal required?
I wasn't aware of any of the particulars about it. To be honest, I was more. What really struck me as unique about any of this situation were the characters that were divided along the corporate lines. Right. X-Men, Spider-Man. Right. Are the Fantastic Four part of that as well?
They're part of the whole Fox thing that just got bought by Disney.
Gotcha.
So Disney does have Fantastic Four now. Yeah, so there was like a creative license and a distribution license, basically. So like Marvel pretty much had like creative control over Spider-Man. Now Sony had the distribution, though. Marvel was only getting 5% of the first dollar gross from the movies, but they had all of the merchandising. So I don't really feel too bad for you when, like, to me, that's where the main bulk of this money is probably made anyways, in merchandising.
Yeah, considering how much it costs to make the movie versus how much it costs to make a toy.
A backpack? Yeah.
Yeah.
And fucking Spider-Man's everywhere, man. Like, if we were talking about, I don't know, Thor or something like slightly less marketable,
Yeah.
maybe. But Spider-Man is up there with Batman, Superman. Like,
Yeah, they are
yeah.
the three.
Yes, but amongst the two companies, absolutely.
That's what I mean. Of the ones you see the most, the one where there's the absolute most market saturation.
Yes.
I honestly would be hard pressed to give you a true answer of which one has the most merchandise. I would not be surprised with any of the three, and I could not give you even a guess.
See, I would think it would be between Batman and Superman. Or, excuse me, Batman and Spider-Man. But I would probably lean Batman.
You're probably right, but there's a whole lot of Superman stuff that is marketed to people who do not give a shit about comics.
Yeah, that's true.
They still buy that stuff all the time.
That's true.
You know, the same goes for the other two, but I think that there's an a silent majority, if you will, for Superman. Okay. A dark energy behind it that I would not be surprised.
And it's a very, I think it's, the age range is wider on that, where Absolutely. Superman will get like more of a younger audience and then more of an older audience that coveted like 15 to like 34 range or something,
right.
You know, is probably square between like Batman, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Now, two more kind of points I want to like just lay the groundwork of here before we go further into the actual deal. There is a difference between there's Marvel Entertainment and then there is Marvel Studios. So I think some people get confused when they go see a movie like Venom and they know it's made by Sony, but there's this big Marvel banner at the beginning and the flipping of the comic book pages, and it feels like an MCU movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that movie is produced by Marvel Entertainment, not Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios started with Iron Man, and that is the MCU. Every MCU-produced movie is Marvel Studios. So again, I just want to be clear that, you know, the chocolate was not in the peanut butter at this point. Sony was attempting to do a Spider-Man universe really without Spider-Man. But they could still do animated movies, which is why they made the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So that's why they're talking about stuff like they're doing was it Morbius movie? Right? Isn't that his name? The vampire guy?
Yeah.
He was in the cartoon I Want to Suck Your Plasma, because you couldn't say blood in 90s kids animation.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I got him confused because I had a cousin who kind of got me into all of these comic books way too early. So I got him confused with Nightmare from Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
Even though in so many iterations they look absolutely nothing alike.
Right. But still, it's just
my little dumb kid brain.
That's just funny that the kid brain though is is aware of Nightmare. And that's just like I said, way too early probably.
Very aware of Nightmare
for these kids to be And then what they're talking about doing like a Silver Sable movie and stuff as well. So you know, Sony was trying to have their cake and eat it too. Really, they were trying to get all
Spider-Verse.
Their own Spider-Man characters. And I think I read today that it was either 600 or 900 characters, if that includes. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. Now I'm sure we're scraping the barrel with some there. They're not all gold mines.
Right.
Now, what is your familiarity then with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies? You've seen the first one, right?
No.
You never saw Homecoming?
No, I never saw it. My familiarity with Tom Holland is not very.
Okay.
But I saw one of his interviews where he switched accents like 14 times in 20 seconds, and I was like, this is the perfect kid.
Yeah, no, he's a great actor.
He's amazing.
And he's a great Peter Parker. What he's asked to do and what he's able to accomplish. He is really good. Okay, but you've seen the Avengers movies and stuff with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So you haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's not like you haven't seen Tom Holland Spider-Man on screen.
Right. Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
And I was thinking that when I watch him, I like that he captures both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because at least in the very beginning of Spider-Man, as a character, as a person, Spider-Man himself separates the two, and that's why he can be so confident under the mask.
And I think that's a good point, that the previous two actors to play Spider-Man really were best at one or the other to me. Like, Tobey was a really good Peter. Like, he was very kind of meek and mild. But that same, like, hesitation in his voice came out in his Spider-Man, and was not the quippy, like, funny Spidey that we're used to.
Yeah.
Now, Garfield, I think his Peter Parker was fine, but his Spider-Man was great. Like,
to that point, and I agree with you, but to that point, I made that same remark to another friend of mine, and he said, I could also do better if you covered my face and no one could see me when I acted. I was like, oh, that's funny. It's funny. It's not fair, but it's funny.
But yeah, it's a joke, I guess. But I mean, you know, that's him under the suit most of the time, you know, unless it's some like crazy stunt stuff.
Yeah, but regardless, you can't see what kind of faces he's making.
But I mean, is voice acting not acting?
No, of course it is. I just thought that was a hilarious take.
Agreed, but that feeds into a point that I hate how at the end of every Spider-Man movie, he's got his fucking mask off in the final fight.
Right, well, it's not just Spider-Man.
I mean...
Captain America.
Yeah, I don't see that with like Batman or something though, or like Iron Man, or to me it's like it's particular heroes, and Spider-Man is one of the largest perpetrators of this, and that like you have to see who the actor is underneath it. Like, oh look everybody, it's Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just not a fan of it, and I think it's really unnecessary, especially when Tom Holland has the eyes that can emote and everything as well. Okay, so what was your just first gut reaction then when you heard the news that Spider-Man, as far as Tom Holland is concerned, is leaving the MCU?
My first thought was for Tom Holland.
Okay. Because
we are losing an incredible talent.
Well, he has 2 left. So he will still be making Spider-Man movies from what I can tell from what I've read, but it will not be connected to the MCU.
Then I misread the headline, and I'm very relieved to hear the news.
Right. So,
I guess my next concern then would be sort of the same reason. Like, okay, so I think you and I have talked about this before, and I've had this discussion with. I think we talked about it a long time ago, but I've had this discussion with other comic book fans. They'll ask me who my favorite characters are, and I'll tell them, but I'll give the caveat, I don't follow characters in comic books, I follow writers.
That's fair.
And, like, I do not, and, you know, please do not hate me for this, I do not like Deadpool. I absolutely despise Deadpool. I'm talking to the listeners here. Okay. I absolutely despise Deadpool. I cannot stand him. But if you were to tell me that Mark Waid was going to write a Deadpool comic,
you're there.
I'd eat my vegetables, let me tell you.
I feel you. I do.
But... So that brings up the point, then, what behind-the-scenes talent is going to be working on the new Spider-Man movies compared to what we've seen so far?
Okay.
What writing staff,
what
directorial effort is going to be put behind it?
From what I can tell, they want to keep the same director. Now, he is not technically signed on for the next ones, so, you know, watch out for that a little bit. From what I've read, basically, it means that Kevin Feige won't be around, which is a big deal. You know, the dude has almost a like completely like unblemished record as far as being a producer on movies. And he has 2 of the highest grossing movies ever, you know, the Infinity War and Endgame. And Far From Home just became Sony's highest grossing movie of all time.
Wow.
Passing Skyfall.
Wow.
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't realize Skyfall was that popular.
Yeah, Skyfall made a lot of money. It was a really good Bond movie.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a subject for another day. I'm also a massive Bond fan. And we got news with that today, too. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy, crazy day. Did you see that the Bond title was announced? Yep. No Time to Kill. That's the name of the new Bond movie.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. And
Sounds
Auburn
like a
announced
Bond
its starting quarterback, so it's been a heck of a day.
Yeah, you've had a big one, huh?
I know, right? Right. Is it Christmas too? Um, so, but I guess Sony really decided that the price to keep Kevin Feige was too high. So what Disney was asking for was a 50-50 co-financing agreement between the two studios. And there was also discussions that this might extend to other movies connected to Spider-Man, a la Venom and Spider-Verse. But, this is Sony's largest franchise, so they were not looking to give up any more of a piece of it than they have really already given up. To me, it sounds like Disney was reaching for too much and kind of knew that they would say no, and then Sony just kind of walked away from the table, which I don't think Marvel was exactly planning on. So my first gut reaction, I am not huge on the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
Now
the solo efforts, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Now Tom Holland is great in both of those, and you know what? Since we've already talked about Bond once, I'll bring it up again. I kind of feel the way about his movies that I do about Timothy Dalton's Bond movies.
Interesting.
I really like Dalton as Bond. In fact, I often call him my favorite Bond, even though I would say that Connery is still the best. But Dalton's my favorite, and that he's the closest to the books. But the movies around Dalton are nowhere near as strong as the movies around Connery or Brosnan or Craig, for that matter.
Right.
So it's the same thing with Tom Holland to me. Tom Holland himself is fine, but literally everything around him in those movies is wrong. Aunt May, I love Marissa Tomei. Love her as an actress. Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. But every scene that Aunt May is in should not have a reference to someone inferring how much they want to have sex with Aunt May.
I understand, and I agree.
Right. Also, Aunt May should show some kind of remorse and longing for Ben. Just mention Uncle Ben a few times. Boy, paying these bills would be easier if your Uncle Ben was still around. Anything. Literally anything. She mentions Ben once in Homecoming, and that's it.
Right. Any reference to the only comic book character in comic book history to stay dead.
Exactly. And for good reason. It would be like Batman never mentioning Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Right.
You're just going with it. And I don't have to see Uncle Ben get shot again. But to me, Spider-Man is about survivor's guilt. And Peter Parker survived, and he feels guilty about it. And that is why he is Spider-Man.
Right.
The movies try to kind of turn it into, spoiler here if you haven't seen Endgame, to make it where Tony Stark is his kind of Uncle Ben to me.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't disagree with that anymore. And that this version of Peter has been given everything, where the comics version of Peter and the past two film incarnations of Peter earned it. And that he makes his own webbing, he makes his suit. He has to figure things out on his own for at least a little bit before finding out about the Avengers and Nick Fury and all that fun Marvel interconnected stuff. But at the beginning, he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's not being given this, multi-million-dollar suit made by Tony Stark that has all the tech in the world. And then there's MJ. So, Zendaya is excellent at what she's asked to do. In fact, in Far From Home, when she is given more of a role than she is in the first one, she is extremely charismatic. And the chemistry between her and Tom Holland is great and is some of the best parts of the movie. That being said, what she is asked to do is bad.
Right.
It has nothing to do with her actual acting ability.
Yeah.
If you give someone a bad thing to act, they could be Marlon Brando and it's still going to be bad.
Yeah.
It would not matter if she was white, black, brown, purple, whatever.
Which could happen.
Right.
It's a Marvel movie.
Yes, yeah, that's completely fine. It's that she goes so there are certain character tropes you have to hit in order to qualify as that character.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
Mary Jane is the popular girl that Peter has no shot with, and she's like a model in high school, but she's like kind of hiding these like deeper family issues behind her pretty girl veneer, right?
Right.
This version of MJ, who's, by the way, goes by Michelle for the whole first movie she's in because her name is not Mary Jane. That is not her name.
Wow.
Right. And she is on the debate team with Peter, and she is like the outcast of the debate team. So she is the outcast of the outcasts, in my opinion. Like, nowhere close. Yeah, exactly. The
Extreme liberties were taken.
Yes. And at the very end, she's like, yeah, you can call me Michelle, but my friends call me MJ. And like, if that counts, then like, what are names? and what are characters? Like, let's call Peter's friend Norman Osborn, because that name makes money. So like, why isn't Norman Osborn in high school and like not a billionaire and not head of his own company? And you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and his dog, Clark Kent.
Right. His dog, J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes, of course.
Peter Parker. Now I'm on like a Spider Ham version of but dogs, version of
Peter Parker.
Yeah, exactly. It writes itself. That's like a big dog shirt out there somewhere.
This shit writes itself. Just rolling off the presses.
So my first reaction then when I heard that there weren't going to be any more of these movies was almost relief, in that like, and like I could keep going too, in that like Betty Brant is in the new version and she's in Far From Home, and she's basically reduced to a joke for Ned to date, when Betty Brant in the comics has a really like dark and deep family home life that's going on, filled with like abuse. And like she's a little older than Peter, so there's really good emotional depth there. And you just pissed it away for a few jokes. And then Ned Leeds, his best friend, is a extremely minor character in the comics. And the movie version is a straight ripoff of Genki, who is Miles Morales' best friend. So like no one... It's all Tropic Thunder here. They're the dude disguised as the dude playing another dude. Like it's just a madhouse.
Maybe they're playing the subtle long con of showing you how this particular universe is broken, or a mishmash of all the correct decisions that were made in other universes.
You know what? How they got it wrong. We might actually circle back around to that here by the end of the podcast. That's an interesting thread I want to pull on here in a second.
All right.
But so mostly I was kind of relieved in that there wouldn't be many more of these. But, and that leads into another question I have here is, does Sony recast at this point, or do they stick with their brand recognition? I think they stick with their brand recognition, in that they could try to almost trick people into thinking that it's a MCU movie.
Well, it's exactly like what you were saying earlier with the Venom and the Marvel Entertainment. They can absolutely trick people into that.
Yes, I think Sony, leans into that some more than others. And I think it would be, would I want to see a recast if that means all of Peter's world gets rewritten as well? I might take that. At this point. Personally, and I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man a lot, but personally, I think it would be worth not having him as Peter Parker to get the depth to his world. Because the way they're doing it right now is extremely shallow, and Spider-Man has some of the best secondary characters in all of comics.
Yeah.
Even
that's one of Marvel's strengths, is the interconnectedness of all of its comics, which includes all the weird, dinky side characters.
Sure. And that, it is just as likely for like J. Jonah Jameson to bump into Reed Richards or something like that.
Of course, they all live together in one building, I assume.
Right. Practically. The Baxter building can't be that far from the Daily Bugle, right?
Right.
It's just a few swings away.
It's half of New York's skyline. The other half is the Avengers Tower.
Right, the Triskelion, for sure. So we've kind of we've kind of got the game plan for what Sony, well, a little bit of what Sony does from here. They make 2 more Spider-Man movies featuring Tom Holland Spider-Man. That's at least what I believe that he is signed on for. If not, I could be completely wrong, and they could be scrapping the whole thing, which honestly I wouldn't be too upset about. Now, I have said this for a while too, that I think Spider-Man would make a far better television show than it would a movie.
Well, it already has.
Ooh. Oh, wait, are we talking about animated series?
Animated.
Okay. I
Not
didn't
the
know if you were
70s
about
one.
that's what I thought
No,
that was
no,
gonna be
no.
I was like,
No,
man,
Potter, no.
that is a bold statement, and I will let you expand, sir.
No way. No.
Oh man. Now see, that's what like Mike Thomas was good for. He would make like outrageous statements like that and then try to back them up.
I'm not gonna swing for the fences here.
Okay. That's Babe Ruth pointing at the green giant in the back there. And I don't really know what ties Sony has with like any kind of television networks or something like that, if they would have to put that out. But I'm sure they're thinking movies because that's where the big dollars are. But to me, that's a shame because then you could actually give somebody like Betty Brant, proper character development. And
Sure.
no,
I mean, you'd assume that they'd try to get something with probably Hulu.
Yes.
Although, with the success of The Boys on Amazon.
Now, that might be more accurate because Disney owns a majority share of Hulu.
Oh, I did know that, actually.
Yeah. We did an episode called The IP Wars not too long ago where we talked about just all the different intellectual property that was being divided up by these giant corporations and then how those giant corporations were eating the ones that got the IP that they wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that has happened since.
It's literally the same thing, same mechanism that happens in every industry.
Sure.
But it's just more highly visible on this one because it's the media we consume.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so basically, Sony goes and makes 2 more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, for sure. We could talk about, let's talk about that now, I guess. What direction do you go if you're Sony with those 2 now that you have full creative control?
Well, they're going to have to try to learn, I think, from box office results of DC movies versus Marvel movies.
Okay.
Because I think, and I don't necessarily think that it has to be divided this way, but for some reason, the powers that be have decided to delineate what we consume as either goofy or dark.
Yeah.
And it's not a recent phenomenon.
Right.
That's why we got Vertigo Comics.
Huh.
I mean, it's what happened. But
yeah.
I don't think they'll play it down the middle. If they do, I mean, I don't see that. I would love to see something that is silly and serious, or poignant, I guess, is what I'd like to say. Which
Fair.
A lot of the Marvel movies did so.
Makes
They
you
did
feel
a
something.
good job. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The master of that would be, say, the work Guillermo del Toro does for his children's shows.
Okay.
They're goofy and silly and full of fart jokes, and by the 10th episode of the 13-episode series, I'm sobbing on the couch next to my girlfriend, swearing that we would never show this to a child.
Swear to me.
So it can be done. It
Right,
can be
okay.
done. But I think there's
So what I'm hearing is Guillermo
binary-
del Toro
there's an
wants to make a Spider-Man movie.
yes, that'd be
Right.
great. But there's
Can
this
you imagine
false
his
sense
lizard?
of binary storytelling.
Okay.
Like you can choose one, you can choose the other.
Agreed.
So
Things can be mixed.
Yeah,
We
but,
live
like,
in a binary world right now, unfortunately. Like with like Twitter and stuff, it's either the best thing ever or the absolute like worst thing. And like you and your children should like hate that you even like this.
How dare you have fun with this thing? It doesn't affect me at all.
How dare you like this?
Take it back.
Person who lives in my phone.
Right. So I don't know. I guess to look at box office results to see the goofy side versus which the goofy side is clearly winning.
Right.
But will they try to bring?
But there's a fine line though, because then you can delve into camp, and I think
so
again DC has shown that when you delve too far into camp, it can almost kill a franchise, even if something is as strong as Batman.
Yeah.
Now, and I didn't even think of this storyline in this way until you said it, but I think the most likely scenario for them to do is a Sony live-action Spider-Verse movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you get Tobey Maguire, and you get Andrew Garfield.
Right.
And you make a movie of those three that's basically like the animated one, but you can cross over a bunch of different ones. I could very easily see them doing that now that they have like full reins over it, and that the animated movie was so successful that they might give that a shot.
I wouldn't be surprised if they included animated characters in it, a la Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, that would be great.
Right?
That would be really good. Can like an actual like 2D like flat Spider Ham next to like a live action Tom Holland. Yeah,
I can see it now. The Spider-Verse is at risk of having a freeway driven through it. A crazy judge who turns out to be a comic book character himself.
Right. Yeah.
That's not a huge spoiler.
Corruption.
Don't worry about that.
Right. For a almost 30-year-old.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We won't remind people what I'm talking about.
It's fine. It's like a 30-year-old movie. If it's spoiled now. Right. Yeah. Okay, so that takes care of the Sony side then. So the bigger question might be, what does the MCU do moving on from here? Clearly they were setting up Peter to be a large part of their universe going forward. And I'll fill you in on some from Far From Home, since, again, spoiler for Endgame. Tony Stark dies. In the first, 30 minutes of Far From Home just hits you over the head with hey, did you know that Tony Stark is dead? By the way, Tony Stark's dead. Hey, did you hear that Tony Stark's dead? It's not going to be any more Iron Man because Tony Stark is fucking dead. So they're kind of setting up Peter to be the new, everyone's asking him, are you the new Iron Man? It's that he's going to assume that role of, the smartest guy in the Avengers, basically, with all the gadgets and everything. Now, with that clearly not happening, who fills that void? What other characters can the MCU bring in to, one, maybe lead? They could have been going towards a young Avengers movie. So I want you to try to think about that aspect of who would be a younger, cool character that they would want to bring in and sell a bunch of toys and shit for. And then who do the Avengers need as the smartest guy in the room type character, if it's not going to be Peter Parker?
Well, my answer to that is a deep cut. It's going to be Bentley from Future Foundation.
Bentley?
The clone of the
Sun?
I thought he was the clone of the hate monger. That's Hitler. Was it the Mad Thinker?
I have no idea.
Oh, man, if you haven't read Future Foundation.
Is this Bentley Richards? Is that his name?
No. I mean, if I had my druthers, we would have a 12-movie series about the Fantastic Four.
Sure. Which, I mean, you'll probably get.
Right.
Maybe not 12, but you'll get something like that.
When I was in college, everyone thought I had put some sort of NASCAR sticker on the back of my car, and it was just the Circle 4.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Woo, Dale.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, everybody thought I was a big old Dale head. I was like, no, I'm a Reed
That
head.
sounds like you, Nat. I mean, just
right?
just a brief knowledge of you. You seem like a NASCAR kind of guy.
Absolutely.
If
my
you don't
favorite
punch
thing in the
someone
whole
in the
world.
teeth when they say you seem like a NASCAR kind of guy.
Yeah. My favorite thing in the whole world is loud, wasteful cars.
Right.
That's just the most wonderful thing in the world.
Turning left for 3 hours, but that's fine. Yeah.
But I digress. Fantastic.
The Wizard. The Wizard is who.
The Wizard,
he's a
yes.
clone.
The
Okay.
Wizard. I thought it was the Wizard, but I figured because it was Stan Lee, it would have to have another W word in there. But anyway, so Bentley, I think it's Bentley 23 or Bentley 32.
Okay.
Maybe Bentley 13. It's Bentley some number.
23. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm on a full database here.
Nice. So he's great, and he's kind of evil, but with a good heart.
Okay.
Obviously, he'd be like, I mean, I don't think they could do a whole movie with him.
There's a
But-
lot of explaining you have to do before you can get to
Yeah.
to quote
But if they could have
Lucille Ball.
Richards- Oh yeah,
Right. You got some explaining to do to get all the way to Bentley Whitman.
yeah. But
Uh,
if they could do something with Franklin Richards that could
No,
culminate,
Franklin
that
Richards
could
is really
tie
cool.
the knot between all of the movies,
Yes.
because you know that he's the reason no one ages in the Marvel books, right?
Oh, that's interesting. He's
Yeah.
like constantly moving the timeline forward or
He's
something.
the
Or...
most powerful being in the Marvel universe.
Right. Right.
I mean, other than I think their fictional representation of Jack Kirby, which I forget what they call him,
Right. That's
Villain
awesome.
or something,
That's awesome.
which is rad. But yeah, so he loves all his superhero friends, like his parent superhero friends, and he keeps them all young because he never wants their stories to stop.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot.
I think
That
it's way
sounds
better.
like
than
some
DC
shit
would do
DC.
it.
I was going to say that sounds like some shit DC would do.
They did it worse.
Uh,
Just rebooting constantly, which I don't necessarily mind.
I would. Is that might be a different question for a different day? Is DC rebooting constantly?
I guess, yeah, that's a deep dive.
Right.
But my answer to somebody asked me, what would you do to keep the explain the continuity and all that? My answer was, I wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need, not do.
Just assume your audience gets it and
It's
keeps up
fine.
with it, and right,
Yeah.
right.
Like, who cares?
Yeah,
that's
I
not
think
the
that's
point.
fair.
And that's one of the things I love so much about comics
Mhm.
is that they will always be there.
Right.
and
Is it
there
a
will
cool
be-
image? Great.
Yeah.
Who
The-
cares
and
about the backstory?
There can be consequences. That's fine. I don't care that the next issue or in 10 years from now, Barry Allen might be alive again. You know,
Right.
to use an extreme example from when he died.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care. That moment is all I need.
Agreed,
cover
because
of
then you
Superman-
feel something
Yeah.
for that because you
Only
love
the
that
fractures.
character.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
that's the
Right.
thing is, that's what the movies can never capture.
Yeah,
But
I'll make the argument that I don't think there has been a good Spider-Man movie besides Spider-Verse. And well, Spider-Man 2.
Right.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
2 is really good.
But like recasting is almost like rebooting a universe.
No, it's pretty much exactly like that. Yeah. Which again, like I mean, I would love if I'll get to me a perfect Spider-Man movie is if you were able to get like maybe Tom Holland, but either Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield, that those takes on the characters, pluck them out and pop them into the aesthetic of the Raimi movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then what I really want to see, and what no one has done this in the Spider-Man movie, so Sony, if you're listening, once you inevitably, Sony, if you're listening, I hate how that's like a phrase now.
Right.
Use your first movie to set up the high school group. The group is Peter is dating Gwen, and Peter's best friend, the rich kid, Harry, is able to date Mary Jane. She's the popular girl, she's the model, but because Harry is the rich kid, socially he's able to climb that ladder, right? So
Right.
that's the group, and that is Peter's core base of high school.
You don't even need to make that an origin story.
No,
You
no,
can just
yeah,
reveal, like, second scene, like Peter leaves the friends with an excuse and goes
Right.
and puts his mask on.
yeah, exactly. That's even better. It could be them waiting for something that Peter never shows up for because he's constantly letting his friends down, right? Because he has this responsibility to be Spider-Man.
Right. And at the
and
end,
then-
Mary Jane begins to suspect.
Yes, yeah, you have to. Which probably means Harry does too. But then in the second movie, you kill Gwen Stacy, and it is Gwen Stacy's death that destroys that group.
Now, why would you
Because
kill
it-
Gwen Stacy?
I know, right?
Why
I
would you
don't know-
single her
I
out?
don't know where I would get that from. But the villain of the second one would probably be a Green Goblin. And
Green Goblin.
a Green Goblin, I say. Yes, yes. Unless I be colorblind. Right. But no, then you show the collapse of that group that, it's Harry's father that murders Harry's best friend's girlfriend. So, Harry eventually dives into like drugs and alcoholism, and it's through their grief that Peter and MJ are able to actually like come together, and that's when to me, MJ is his like adult relationship, where Gwen is like his like first big love.
Right.
And so then your third movie, you go from there.
Yeah. Introducing Stiltman, the character we're all there for.
Oh,
if we're honest with ourselves.
For sure. Starring Bagman. It's gonna be great.
Or that psychedelic skateboarder from the like late '60s.
Sweet. No, so I do think though that you were in the right ballpark as far as if we're talking about what the MCU is going to do to get who's going to be that smartest guy in the room now, right? And to me, the clear answer is Reed Richards. With Fantastic Four for sure is the way you need to go with it. So I think that ups the timetable probably that Marvel planned on releasing or fast tracking a Fantastic Four movie. Hopefully that's what happens. Now, if you want to go the whole young Avenger route and still keep someone young but that's powerful and is going to be like involved in your big fights too with Avengers and everything, it is past time for Nova to be part of the MCU.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You tease him in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's time to finally come through with that.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be, I think, between the two of those characters, you could make up what Spider-Man was, as far as like how the puzzle piece that he fit into what the MCU was doing and where they were going.
Yeah. I don't think people would be ready for a team led by 5-year-old or 3-year-old Valeria Richards.
No, probably not.
I don't think the world is ready for that.
Now, I have seen some talk of. Do you remember the kid in Iron Man 3?
The kid in Iron Man 3. It's been a couple years since I saw it.
Tony Stark is in his like garage, and the kid's like helping him put stuff in his suit back together, and Tony's like coping with his PTSD, and like the kid's kind of talking back and forth with him. I don't blame you. Iron Man 3 was very forgettable.
Yeah.
I did not like that movie. And he was kind of one of the more forgettable parts of it.
Yeah, or at least not ringing any bells at all.
It was the part that people would point to is to like see like this is what's wrong with this movie. But point being, that kid is in the funeral scene in Endgame for Tony Stark. The same actor who's grown now.
Right.
So I've seen some fan theories that actor becomes his own kind of. Apparently, there's some kind of Iron Man sidekick called like Iron Lad, which is just a dumb enough name for MCU to be like, we're doing that. We're gonna make an Iron Lad movie, and it's gonna make $1 billion because fuck you.
Right.
Right.
All right, I'll go see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. It's like yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that way, but I think the other options of a Reed Richards or a Nova movie would, one, make more money, and two, probably just seem like a better option to me.
Now, would you think about this as like Reed Richards pre-Fantastic Four?
Now that's interesting. No,
obviously they'd have to shuffle a lot of things around. But...
Yeah. No, and I'll tell you why. I want everybody, movies included. Movies aren't nearly as bad about this as TV. But can we please get away from trying to do stories about these characters before the characters were interesting?
Right.
Like, I don't want to know adolescent Bruce's life. The Golden Age comics covered all of Gotham in like a page.
Yeah.
Right? So like,
there you go.
And we didn't need it. Clearly, there's 80-something years of Batman further to prove that point.
Or Pennyworth.
Well, now that one's kind of a cool idea, but yes, the Smallville, Superman before he's Superman, like,
right?
Who wants that?
Or like the '80s Superboy.
Yes.
Yes.
I have not seen that in a very long time. I saw the intro recently. My 2-year-old loves the intros to stuff because it's the songs and it's
Right,
a bunch
right.
of like the action scenes and whatnot. So we were watching a YouTube video while he was eating that was every Superman intro
Nice.
ever. And it was like 30 minutes long, but it was from, the Max Fleischer stuff all the way up until now. It's really good. You as a Superman guy should check it out.
Oh, I'm probably gonna cry.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, just cover the teeth.
That's fair. Although it's hard for me to look at the Dean Cain ones the same as I used to, since Dean Cain's such an asshole now.
He sucks. It's
Right.
it's the worst.
It
Oh my
sucks.
God, why, Dean? Why?
Why does Dean have to be such an asshole? Yeah.
It was so cool. Back in
I
the
know.
90s, somebody's like, why isn't Superman white? And Dean Cain was like, he's a fucking alien. And now Dean Cain's like, I hate you in your safe
Right.
space because I'm a
Yeah.
Republican, blah.
Yeah, but aliens can't come into my country.
Yeah. The fuck?
Illegal
Hey.
aliens, especially. If only Jor-El and Laurel had followed the law and had Kal-El, I'm sorry, Kal-El, DACA doesn't cover you anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good luck putting him in a southern camp at the border.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was a climate
Superman.
change denier.
Now, there's a Superman story for a modern audience, immigration story featuring Superman. That would, resonate highly in 2019, I feel like.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, probably 2020 as well.
Yeah. But
So,
let's
yeah,
talk about people
Go
in spandex beating each other up.
Yeah, exactly. Back to that. I don't know. That's how I see it. That's how I see it playing out, personally. As far as what Sony does with it and how Marvel tries to. To me, this hurts Marvel more than I think it hurts Sony.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
They had to be planning to have Spider-Man in their Phase 5 or whatever that they're going into now. And now they are kind of left to scramble and like maybe rearrange some things. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this has been going on behind the scenes for a while and we're like just now hearing about it or something.
Yeah.
But I think Sony felt emboldened after Venom did well,
Mhm.
at least financially. It made good money and it's getting a sequel with Andy Serkis directing and Tom Hardy is back. And Spider-Verse won awards.
Right.
We can't. Yeah, you can't knock how successful Spider-Verse was.
And also,
so
to your point too. I'm sorry to interrupt. But you're to further cement what you're saying about it helping Sony and hurting Marvel. One of the things that I haven't heard people talking about is the age of the actor. Now,
That's
if they
fair.
decide not to recast, they've got Tom Holland, who's what 23 now tops.
Yeah, tops.
He was 19 when they cast him in his first movie.
Okay.
I believe so. So they've got him basically not
He's 23.
aging for a while.
Nailed it.
So yeah, he's as long as he takes care of himself contractually, like I'm sure he's obligated to,
Of course.
it's not going to age.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he's got plenty of more Spider-Man movies left in him if they want him to do that.
Yeah.
Which I think Sony would be crazy to not keep going with him. Again, to try to trick people into thinking like, oh, this is my MCU Spider-Man movie. I wonder if I'll see Captain America.
Yeah.
Which you won't. Spoiler alert, you won't.
Yeah. Nope.
Now, while we won't get the more intricate details of the Marvel Universe as a whole in Spider-Man movies anymore, I will assume this means we'll get more Spider-Man characters in a
Right.
Spider-Man movie, which, to several of my points earlier, may or may not be a good thing. That they were able to do more. Yeah, sure. Why not? Just, Stiltman, I don't know. Stiltman, he's a teacher at the school, and
He's studying regenerative medicine.
Right,
Something goes wrong. He
regenerative
grows his
sticks.
legs long.
Right. Yeah, whatever. Fuck you. You'll see it.
Stick bugs.
God damn. Bitten by a radioactive stick bug, he becomes Stickman.
Boy.
Yeah, that could just go so wrong so quick. I don't know. I am hopeful that this will lead to more, quality Spider-Man movies, but I don't really see that happening until, in my view at least, and I'm sure this might be a unpopular opinion, but in my view, until the world around Peter is changed drastically from top to bottom, Tom Holland could be the best actor in the world, and it wouldn't matter.
Right, because even though he captures Spider-Man, the movie doesn't.
Yep. It's the Dalton problem. Yep.
I understand.
Coined a phrase right there.
The Dalton
problem. Yeah. All right, man. Do you have anything else to add? Any other points or anything here before we?
No, I like what you were saying about the whether or not he should be recast, or you know, how people would feel about that, how you particularly would feel about that.
A Spider-Verse movie though people would go apeshit for that, for the live action. Yeah. To see Tobey Maguire back in it and Andrew Garfield, even the people that didn't like those movies would go see that movie.
Right, because they got 2 other Spider-Men that they could look at.
You're pleasing every fragmented segment of the Spider-Man fan base right now.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That's fair. Yeah. What's that from?
I was thinking it was a Meatloaf song.
Okay.
That's where I was coming from.
That's awesome. But even the Tobey Maguire movies have kind of picked up a bigger following lately than I feel like they had when they ended. The first one is good. The second one is really, really good. And the third one is a steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah. I'd rank them that way.
Another example of what happens when you go a little too far into the camp.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it can't. As we talked about a little bit last time on Classic Cartoon Rewind, there is good example of camp, and that would be something like Brave and the Bold. Agreed.
It can. A great example is the raindrops keep falling on my head sequence in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That comes off as like kind of cheesy, but like it's sweet because it's Peter and he doesn't really have a care now because he doesn't have his spider powers, and freeze frame on his face and it looks all 70s. And then they try to recapture the same thing in the third one to whatever song it was that he was doing the bad thing to. Oh really? Lucky you.
It one time.
Man, Michael Thomas and I saw that movie in high school at the midnight premiere, back when those were still at midnight. Nice. On like Thursdays. So, we're not getting out of the movie theater until like almost 3 a.m. Friday and have school the next day. And I just remember being so mad at school. Like, I got like 4 hours of sleep for the shittiest Spider-Man movie I have ever seen.
I didn't want to see him catch food on a plate.
It's very impressive. We get it. So I don't know. I'll be hopeful, and let's be honest, I'm going to go see it, really, whatever they end up putting out. But
of course we will.
I would prefer to like it rather than to not like it. Yeah. And again, with this breaking right before Disney's big convention, like D23 or whatever is right around the corner. Yeah. If this was a surprise to them, I will be interested to see how much we learn about Phase 5 or any other movies that they're talking about doing. What's getting shelved and what's getting moved around at Marvel Studios right now is an interesting question that unfortunately we don't have the access level to. So time will tell, but I don't know. I am sad to not see Spider-Man in my Avengers anymore. I am hopeful to have a better Spidey world in his own right later.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly valid hope to have.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're hopeful here at Grassroots Comics. So if you want to keep up with everything Grassroots Comics, the best place to do that is our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/grassrootscomics. Be sure to tweet at us at GRC Podcast, and we are also on Instagram just at Grassroots Comics. That's all for today. I've been your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I'm the bench host, Nat Yantz.
There we go. And we will see you next week, kiddos. Have a good one.
We'll be.
Hey, did you know that?
This has been a Grassroots Comics production. Da da da. So what's your story?
What are you? Some kind of silly cartoon?
You got a problem with cartoons?